Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the September 20th, 2022 meeting of the Litchfield Planning Board. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I'll start with the roll call of members. Michael Croto, Chair.
Kate Stevens, Vice Chair.
Ron Stevens, member.
Julie Queenan, Selectmen's Rep.
Sam Terrell, member.
James Buffetti, member.
Okay, good evening, everybody. And we have with us this evening Jay Mancara, NRPC, welcome, and Joan McKibben, our Planning Board Administrator, welcome. First item on the agenda, public input on non-agenda items, any items not on the agenda for this evening. Seeing nobody in the gallery this evening, I guess I will close public input on non-agenda items. And we will go to the first item this evening. This is a workshop. Subdivision site plan revisions, number one. Jay, did you want to lead us off?
Yes. So this is really a follow-up to from our last workshop. There may be other things we want to consider. I just put together the things that I thought were most pressing, which is updating our subdivision site plan regulations to reflect the recent statutory changes, mainly that came out of House Bill 1661. So no particular order. I'll start with subdivision regulations where it says 300 procedure. And I'll just kind of highlight the changes. First of all, in your first section there, ignore consultation. That's not a change. Not really. It added a comma automatically, and it just struck out the last word. So ignoring that. So the first change here, this is actually not statutory. It's 131001. Just changing the 15 days. You have to submit an application 15 days prior to the date of meeting, rather, changing it to 21 from 15. That makes it consistent with all of our other applications. So it just makes sense to have one time frame. Going down to 131002, design review, exact same change. So pretty minor. And then turning the page and going all the way down to the bottom, 132004. Statute was amended a few years ago to allow us to post the meeting notice on the town's website rather than a newspaper of general circulation. That is our practice. We just never updated the regs to reflect it. So this updates that. And then going on to the next page, and I am on page 7. And so 32005. Statute also now provides that if a project is declared to be a project of regional impact, we have another 30 days to review the project. So I just basically inserted that change to reflect that we actually have 95 days in that circumstance. Moving on down to 132007. The regs are a little bit repetitive sometimes, but kind of once again, I put in that 95-day review period for projects of regional impact. And then the other key change is statute previously allowed the planning board to ask the selectmen to approve an extension, a 90-day extension, or I should say an extension not to exceed 90 days. If they didn't complete the review within the 65-day period, that's no longer allowed. So I simply struck that language. And I can come back to that point in a moment. And then moving again down to 132007, second paragraph, once again, the 95 days for projects of regional impact. And then this is the other key change. As I mentioned before, previously, planning board could apply the selectmen for up to a 90-day extension. That's gone. An applicant can still agree to an extension, and that is what has always happened for us. I don't think we've ever gone to the selectmen and requested an extension. But what it does now say is that if for any reason the board failed to act within that required 65 days or 95 for a project of regional impact, the selectmen shall certify the plan. So again, this is taking the language right out of the statute and inserting it here. Then going down to 132008, and this is another change that came out. When we make a notice of decision, we are supposed to include specific findings of fact to support that decision. And just practically, I mean, really the way that should work is, when we're making a motion to approve, we should state the reasons why I should say approve or disapprove, we should state the reasons and then make sure that that's in the notice.
May I go back to one?
Yeah,
That's for 32007.
yes,
Just so I understand that, 65 or 95 days, I'm in the second paragraph, for regional impact, right?
Yep.
If there is no extension, then it automatically goes to the selectmen and they have to approve it?
yes.
Is that gonna be a tactic people use to? I hope
Re-
not. I don't run into it,
Realistically,
but-
probably not, because it's failure on the part of the board to act, and I think practically speaking, if we were running up against that time limit and the applicant didn't request an extension or didn't agree to an extension,
Right.
the board would be within its rights to deny the plan, theoretically. So long as, again, you're on solid footing. And I, kind of just, again, thinking about the practice of this board, I don't think this board ever drags its feet. But yeah, that is what it means now, automatic approval.
Okay, thank you.
And it says the applicant's application that the plat is approved? Should be plat or plan?
I took the word directly out of the statute, but we
Oh,
could
okay.
certainly say plan.
No,
yeah.
if that's what it is, that's fine, I just didn't realize.
But
that
you're
they were
right, it's,
interchangeable.
the statute uses the term plat a lot.
Okay,
We tend to use plan,
okay.
but yeah.
I know.
And then, going on, we should now be on page 8, and this is also new. So going down to 32010, of course, if the board feels it doesn't have sufficient information to make a final decision on an application, and the applicant doesn't agree to an extension, the board has two options. It can simply deny the plan outright, or it can deny the plan without prejudice. So why that's important is that currently, under current law, if an application is denied and the applicant comes back with the same or substantially the same application, the board can't hear it. The board actually has to make a determination as to whether or not it's the same or a substantially same application, and if the board concludes that it is, they can't hear the application. And basically that's designed to say you just can't keep coming back with the same thing. But in this case, where the reason the board is denying the application is a lack of sufficient information, not because the project doesn't meet the rules, a substantive reason, but simply because, hey, we're at the 65 days, you're not agreeing to an extension, and we feel that, a traffic study is needed, that would be a scenario where this might come into play. And basically, that would allow them to go and do that traffic study and come back.
And submit it again.
Right.
Exactly.
But so to Kim's earlier question, what that does is protect us against having a scenario where the selectmen have to automatically approve it.
Yep.
So flipping over, I'm now on page 19. This is not a statutory change. And we could look at this one different ways, but this is really not how we're currently practicing. What this says is that, I could, just read it, but, upon a vote by the majority of the planning board to approve a subdivision plan, the applicant has final approval, et cetera, et cetera. Key here is that the subdivision plan shall be signed by the chairperson of the board, and it shall be filed with the planning board secretary and/or code enforcement officer. And then it goes on to say, any plan not so filed within 30 days of the date upon which the plat is approved. That is not at all our practice. 30 days is a really quick turnaround. Most of the plans that we approve, there's always some changes, regarding conditions. So right now, that 30 days isn't consistent. I actually meant to strike that. And then it goes on to say that the plan has to be recorded within 60 days at the registry. And again, that's just not what we're doing. I suggested making it 90 days. I don't feel strongly about that 90, but I think what we want to really do is, Mike, I'm thinking of your experience and Joan and yours, what's a realistic turnaround time? So I stuck that in there now as a placeholder, but I think we just need to be realistic about how long it really takes to get a plan ready for signature, and then how long does it take realistically to record it?
I'd go with more like 120 days.
120, yeah.
That would make sense then.
Why do you say that? Why does it take 4 months?
Because a lot of times they'll be waiting for state permits, and any number of things that can hold up final plans. And you don't want to record too early. Bonding, you want bonding before you record, if it's a road.
Okay. I think 120 would be reasonable.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then finally, page 20. I thought there was a change on page 20, but no, I guess there isn't. That's the last change. So that's the last change for subdivision.
Are we gonna do 851.2? Are they all the same?
Mine is
I have red on mine.
right here.
Oh, this is actually in the existing site plan regs.
Oh,
The
okay.
red that's in italics.
Yeah,
I know
they
it's
just so happened
confusing.
to point out red, okay,
Yeah, that red is already there.
okay.
It probably threw me too, which is why I printed an extra page. So if we are okay with those, I was gonna move on to site plan.
Anybody have any questions for Jay? That looks pretty good.
So starting on page 42 on 130.1, this is exactly what we talked about in subdivision under conceptual reviews. It was 15, or it is 15. I'm suggesting we change it to 21 for consistency. So, and the same thing on 130.2, change it to 21 from 15. And going on to the next page, section 140.3. Exactly what we saw before, noting that we have 95 days for projects of regional impact. And then, again, exactly as we talked about before, at the bottom of that same paragraph, if the board determines that it lacks sufficient information, it can the board can deny an application without prejudice, exactly as we spoke before. I think you're gonna find that as a common theme as we move through these. And then going down again to the very bottom of that section, once again, it's striking this section that says that the planning board can go to the selectmen for an extension. And I struck that entirely because we repeat it very soon. 140.4, once again, the extension language, and I struck that. On to the next page, I'm on 140.7. And, same thing we talked about previously. We note projects of regional impact have 95 days, and this is the same language we saw before, that if the board fails to act within the 65 or 95, the selectmen shall certify the approval. And then moving on down to 140.7A, approval. And here, again, I note that the board's decision has to include specific written findings of fact. And then moving on down to C, once again, this is the language, and I'm at the very bottom of the page. This is again the language that says that the board can deny a project without prejudice. Flipping over, on page 40, on page 46. And this is really the same language that we just talked about. It's a continuation of that same thought. And then once again, we stick in a reference to specific findings of fact. So that's it for both of them. Pretty much the same changes in each case.
Okay.
Very good. Anybody have any questions?
Just need a clarification. I like it. Just my understanding of, and maybe we're just behind. The decision shall include specific written findings of fact to support the decision. I agree with that. Is that just for transparency's sake, or just time goes by and people forget? Well, why was that? Maybe it's been in
I would say
law for a while.
transparency is a reason, but also just giving a clear, so I guess there's a couple of reasons for it. But one, I think, yeah,
Right thing to do,
in sake of
but-
transparency, why did you approve it or not approve it, there ought to be reasons. But without question, it's also, for if somebody wants to appeal that decision, they'll know what the grounds were for you granting it. You know, very often, I mean, all too often, I guess I'd say, you have a motion to approve and there's no, sometimes, of course, you can glean that from the minutes, or the discussion, you can't always, so, that's the reason.
Okay.
Yeah, so appellate courts give great weight to the decision of the board. And they will usually sustain the decision of the board if it's based on stated facts that support it. So it's primarily for appellate review, so if it gets appealed to Superior Court, they know why we did what we did, and if it's a rational decision, presumably it will be, then they will sustain the decision of the board. But without it, they have no idea why we did what we did, and they're more likely to overturn the decision.
Good. Thank you.
That's right. So if we're comfortable with them at some point, we should, probably, we can also, take some more time, look at them, discuss them again at another workshop, but at some point, we would want to move them to public hearing.
Okay.
Probably sooner rather than later, because these
I mean, I
changes
think,
are already in effect.
I think they look great.
Yeah, I do too.
I think so too.
I mean, there were a couple of changes I guess you wanna make, but I think these are fine. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't move these to a public hearing.
So I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
All right, I have a motion by James, do I have a second? Second by Ron. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of approval of the changes to both the subdivision regulations and site plan review regulations, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 6-0-0.
Good job, Jay.
Yes, very well done. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't know if you want to talk home occupation or not.
Yeah, why not?
We had a lot of discussion about home occupations at the last workshop that we did. So I did a little poking around and found, there's a lot of examples obviously, but I found 3 examples out there that I thought had some merit worth talking about. I had mentioned Limeboro the last time, so not necessarily going to go through these in detail. I think the key takeaway with Limeboro is like a number of ordinances I'm seeing out there, they have 2 different tiers. One they call home occupation and the other one they call home business. Limeboro is obviously a pretty rural community. They allow actually a very wide range of uses. But a key theme is that if you are a home occupation, so you're looking down under, you've got these general standards up front, and then if you go down to section B, home occupation, you can see under 1, that a home occupation shall be permitted in all districts of town as a matter of right. No site plan review is required, no special exception is required. And the thinking under this is that a home occupation, as they define it, is essentially the kind of business that would be largely invisible. You really wouldn't see it. You can have an employee, all the towns don't allow that, but for the most part, you can't have exterior storage, can't have more than one other employee, gotta be carried out by a resident, and then there is a restriction on the floor area. You can't be more than 1/4 of the home or equivalent area in accessory building, so it's really very straightforward. And then if you turn the page on to see home business is more extensive in what it allows, and site plan review is required. So they allow more intensive use. This ordinance really lacks, I think, a good description of the distinctions, but nevertheless, they break it onto two, and I think that's the main thing. And then they have a section on exclusions. Again, rural community, they're excluding anything, sale of anything produced on the property is allowed in Lyme by right. Moving on to the next one, which is Londonderry. Londonderry's ordinance, and again, I'm not gonna go through every single one, I think it makes sense to read these, but, Londonderry's ordinance has a lot of things, I think, that are worth taking a deeper look at. So, first of all, they've got their first section, which is requirements for all home occupations, that makes sense. And a lot of them are pretty typical. You've got your area requirement, it's gotta be carried out by members of, by somebody who lives on the property, et cetera. You can kind of go through them and see what does and doesn't make sense. And then going down to K, they have a list of specific businesses that are not allowed. So kind of around some of the conversation that we've been having, there are 6 items here that they feel are not gonna be allowed under any circumstance. Then they go on, and kind of similar to.
Can I interrupt you for
Yeah.
a second? Can you give me one example of
A home occupation?
that is allowed?
Say, somebody who has an accounting business and they're operating it out of their home.
Okay.
That would be allowed.
I was thinking something like that, I just wanted to make sure I was correct.
Yeah, and they're gonna vary in these, but, so going on down to the bottom, you have your category, it's 5.12.3. These again are home occupations that are allowed by right. You can kind of see right in the opening statement, home occupations which are not evident to the general public are permitted by right in all districts, and they kind of list what that means. Essentially, it doesn't have an impact, it's not visible. Then flipping the page, again, you can kind of see why. It's entirely within the residence or accessory building. There is no need for others to park on the property. There's no business vehicle on the property. And only residents are employed in the business. So, basically that kind of makes sense. This is a business that's gonna be operated, but in essence, no one's gonna know that it's there. And then, and this is gonna be a trend, under section 5.12.4, they have home occupations that are allowed by special exception. Not surprisingly, these are a higher level of home occupation, and they do have more significant requirements around what needs to be submitted. Not gonna go through all of them, but, they do allow a sign, they do allow an outside employee. So this is something that would be much more visible. This could be an example of, say, someone who is, cutting hair, a beauty salon type thing. They may have an outside employee, it's clearly gonna be visible, there's gonna be people coming and going and parking on the site. Other things that I thought were probably really worth pointing out and thinking about, they have a specific provision in here on childcare facilities. And when you kind of think about it, you know, based childcare, it is regulated by the state. There's certain rules around it. But it is very different in its nature from other types of home occupations. So perhaps having a specific section that speaks to childcare probably does make sense. Almost always with a childcare facility, there's going to be pickup and drop off, and that is pretty evident. The other factor with childcare facilities is that there's, almost without exception, there's outdoor play. That's not saying it's a bad thing, it's just a different thing. And then interestingly, flipping over the page, they also have adult daycare, which I thought was interesting as a home occupation. So these are basically the ones that they've decided to flag. You know, I think there's some pieces in here that are good and, you know, might inform any decisions we make on updating ours. And then finally, Merrimack. Very, very similar to the ones that we've seen previously. They have 2 tiers of home occupation. They call them level 1 and level 2. And as you've seen with some of the other ones, they have a general list of what that looks like. So you're a level 1 if you meet all of the criteria down here. Very similar to Londonderry. It is, there's no sign. Basically, this is all a way of saying it's going to be largely invisible. They include some provisions in here that other ones don't. So for instance, number 8, they talk about the types of delivery vehicles as an example. So again, there are probably some things in here that might be worthwhile. Note number 11, level 1 home occupations, firearms of any kind are not allowed. No firearm related use. Moving on down to level 2. In this case, level 2 requires a conditional use permit from the planning board. So we can see there's different ways that communities are doing this. Some do special exception, some do conditional use, but pretty consistently there's this theme of level 1, level 2. One requiring approval, one not requiring approval. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, flipping it over, once again, you have, you know, different types of criteria. This is, of course, more visible. You can have a sign. You can have an outside employee, you know, et cetera. And so basically, that's it. I'm sure there's other great examples out there, but I thought that these 3 were really interesting and worth thinking about, whether we want to have more than one level of home occupation with different requirements. And I thought that also the concept of what's excluded, you know, these ordinances all had that in common, where these things are prohibited under all circumstances, these types of businesses, or you know, there are types of businesses that are allowed in one level but not another level. So I think those are all worthwhile things to think about, and a lot of the individual, you know, provisions in here, you know, there are a lot of things that we don't address. Maybe we should. So really, this is just for thought, for conversation. I guess I'd say overall, I do kind of like that concept of having 2 different levels.
Tiers.
Yeah, and if there are types of home occupations that we feel really aren't appropriate, you know, it makes sense to say so.
Okay, anybody have any?
So when, is there ever a time that a home occupation permit is granted under our ordinances without coming to the planning board? I know it was being done, but it wasn't supposed to be, is that right?
No,
Okay.
they have to come to the planning board if they have a home occupation.
Okay. So if we did a level 1 and level 2, would it be like level 1s don't need to come to the planning board?
That's an option, yeah. That's what these communities all do. They all
Okay.
say that there's a level of home basically the invisible ones, which are probably all over town right now.
Yeah.
They are, like desktop type publishing thing.
Right.
Right.
So it's saying that ones that really have no there are no customers coming, there's no sign, no outdoor storage, and no outside employees.
No traffic.
Right, those are fine, and then they define that kind of next level.
Okay. I liked this exclusion about the food articles produced, so like you could sell your eggs
Yeah.
and things on the side of the road. Cause I wouldn't want people coming to the planning board so they could set up like a flower stand or something.
Yeah. And I think being clear about certain ones that aren't allowed, I think, is significant. You're kind of going to the Limeboro example. Limeboro doesn't have a lot of definition around what they call the home business is. And, they allow again, that's probably more appropriate in a rural community, but for as an example, doggy daycare is an allowed use. That's recently came before the board, it's approved. For Litchfield neighborhood, maybe doggy daycare is not what you want.
Okay.
Maybe we do, but that's kind of an example. Auto repair is another
Yeah.
one.
Okay.
We did have a doggy daycare, remember that? I think they were on a
We had one
corner.
permitted and one denied.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I do
Yeah.
remember that.
they were on a corner and we thought it was dangerous for drop-off or something. Yeah,
Yeah, those can be sensitive. Landscaping business is another one. There can be, trucks coming and going, piles of mulch, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm saying we don't want to allow it, but I think having some definition around what you really don't want to see, I think is helpful.
I like the part about not permitted in multifamily dwelling, that would be a little dense, probably to have a home occupation in multifamily.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's pretty common also.
Even the invisible ones?
Not the invisible ones.
Not the
Okay.
invisible ones, no.
So would a level one, if we did it that
Good
way,
point, though.
where a level one wouldn't need to come to the planning board, would they still need a permit from the town?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have that done by administrative now, that if they come, ask the zoning person if it's required, then if they, they have, it's basically a level one, they have no issues coming or going, and they don't need a permit.
Okay.
And what about signing off? I know usually we renew.
They usually get a letter saying that they don't need a permit from the zoning official.
I think for the invisible home occupations, we could allow one non-resident employee. I don't think that would be an issue. Someone to
And do we
help
want-
around.
We
And
kinda
it's not
wanna-
obvious to the town, that there's a business there still with one car in the driveway.
That makes sense, yeah.
True.
Especially if you have an accounting firm or something, and,
Right.
someone working with you.
Right.
And I'm interested in, I think, this one says, the delivery of goods and materials shall be limited to step vans and similar vehicles customarily associated with residential deliveries.
How do you
I'm
enforce
wondering,
that?
I'm wondering if we can do something like no more than 2 deliveries a day or something like that. I don't know that we can. If there's already like an Amazon and a FedEx and a UPS truck driving down the street. But I could see if that was pulling into my next door neighbor's house every day, all 3 trucks, that would get aggravating. But,
I guess it depends what you're,
that's what your business is.
yeah,
yeah.
right. Yeah, I do like the 2-tier system. That's,
So what does the two-tier system mean? More scrutiny is happening?
I think it's less.
Yeah, I
Less
think-
on one
yeah,
and
because
more
it's
on the
permitted.
other.
On the one hand, it's basically saying that a lot of the stuff that's invisible and is probably happening anyway is legal. But then,
Or, you could have it where you can still have them come before the board, you can do a review, and then you have a second level, which would have a little bit more scrutiny to it if you wanted to do it that way. It's up, you could do
have that now with the zoning officer doing, if they are basically a level 2, then they come to the planning board.
Yeah.
If they have nothing, nothing visible, then they don't need a permit.
So if you're making candles or something, I'm just making up something that might be hazardous, I don't know. Should that be something looked at? We had a baker come in once, right?
Yeah, I remember the cake
That
lady.
didn't seem to
Things
be a
that would issue a health
flammable
or a
issue.
fire
but-
hazard probably should come.
We did have the cake person, right? She came in. But somebody manufacturing in their home is what I'm getting at, right? Some
Yeah, I guess
potentially
if you have a
dangerous.
machine shop or something.
Yeah, I mean, you've got somebody who might be, making jewelry in their spare time and selling it at fairs. That's nothing that you'd see.
I do that now.
If
Coming from the
It's a
board,
hobby that's turned into
You may have an issue right now, we got show costs.
All right, well, how much you need?
Go sit in that chair.
No, but that's true. Hobbies do get out of control. They turn into a business.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, they turn into a home occupation.
Yeah, but nobody's coming to the house.
that's the point of
Right.
the
you
level
know,
1.
so-
Okay.
Yeah.
But if you're making something, maybe we need to look at something manufacturing-ish.
Sure, but that wouldn't be level 1. It would
Right, that would be level 2. That's what I'm saying, the
Right.
more scrutiny.
I think having a level 1, sort of what the way they describe it, that they don't have to come to the board makes sense, because they're not coming to the board now, right? So it clears up that whole ambiguity, such as it is. And then a level 2, then I think that would be where the rubber meets the road in terms of what we would want, or not want, manufacturing, doggy daycare,
Yeah.
childcare, that kind of stuff. But I think having that first category where they don't need to come before the board for a lot of people that are not doing it now, I mean, that seems to make sense. And I think having, an employee, in a business like that makes perfect sense.
I like the distinction between a home occupation and a home business
Yeah.
better than a level 1 and a level 2.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I think that makes sense too.
Yeah, me too.
You just have to, I don't think that which town is it? Line, yeah, I don't think that they define very well a home business. I think we would have to,
don't.
you would have to be a little more explicit about what the difference is between a home occupation and a home business, but that probably does make more sense. Because it is more accurate, I think, in describing what the distinction is we're trying to get at.
It would line up with the level 1, level 2.
Yeah, yep.
I mean, engagement with the public? How are we gonna define that?
Business would be something that's visible to the public, yeah,
Right.
and an occupation wouldn't be.
Right, that's what I'm saying. They don't come in your
Right, so that's the
house.
same as level 1, level 2.
Right.
So
Right.
that's one, the public, right? Somebody brought up duplexes. I mean, if it's a duplex and the other side of the property agrees with what you're doing, I mean, I don't know if there's, they might have to say, I don't know.
Well, except
It says
if
multifamily.
there's a change in ownership,
See, that's what I mean. It's, yeah.
right?
Okay.
And Merrimack's is really the same, they just don't use the terms level 1, level 2,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah, you just substitute home
Yeah.
business for level 2. But I think we could work on the level, I mean, that would, like I say, that would be the work, to figure out what we want for the level 2, but maybe if you could take a stab at it.
Sure,
And come
I could.
back. And we can sort of figure out where we are with it.
okay, yeah, happy to.
Definitely this letter K in Londonderry's thing here about it saying anything that generates or stores hazardous substances, that sort of thing should be at least in the business side. Like that whole
Yeah.
section that we're okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we, say none of those are not permitted at all, but, definitely wouldn't be in the occupation side.
Right, definitely K1.
Yeah, right.
Or if someone were,
Right.
like, fixing automobiles out of their house or something,
Yeah, they're clear on that's not allowed.
yeah.
So hairdressing business in the home, level 2,
Yes,
to be traffic, and,
Yep.
that kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
because there'd be signage,
Yep,
Right,
so it would be much more open and notorious.
need for parking.
right.
Yep. Okay, well, this is good.
All right,
No, I
I'll
think
take a
it's,
stab at it.
I think it's really good, yeah.
Thank you, Jay.
Yes, thank you. Good job. Okay.
That's what I got.
Okay. Next item is master plan update.
I really don't have updates. I have, I think last time we talked about doing economic development and natural resources, so that's what I'm gonna focus on, but
Okay.
I don't have drafts yet at this point.
Okay.
Soon.
Did you get my suggestion?
Yes. You want to speak to those?
Maybe just the first one when we get down to, the New England Power.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I could say right now that, under wetland special exception 1208, under the zoning board has been, insisting on comment from the planning board.
Right.
It seems that if the Conservation Commission, comments on special exceptions to wetlands, that planning board, I don't know, doesn't really.
Well, it says referred to the planning board, conservation commission, and health officer.
It says should be referred to, but the current chairman is insisting on documentation from the planning board. It should be referred to the planning board, but,
Mhm.
the ZBA chair is insisting that there be a letter sent.
I see, okay, I see what you're saying, yeah. So if we vote,
It's-
then it should be,
It now says referred to the planning board.
okay. Yeah, it's sort of a strict constructionist view of the reading of the exception.
That's why you
So
have
is that-
this, that's why you have this New England Power
Yeah.
zoning application for a special exception.
That's a change that you want to make
Well, it's
to the ordinance?
somehow change it so that it can be still referred to the planning board if the planning board's interested in making a comment. But
Right, or you
not-
could just add a line that says the planning board may choose to provide
may choose,
comments.
yeah.
Okay. Do we need a vote or a motion on that? Or is it too early? Should we,
Or do you want to
Yeah.
discuss
It would be an ordinance amendment, so that would actually have to go to town meeting.
in the zoning?
Yeah, so they would have
Yeah,
to hear it.
Okay.
may choose to.
Why did they send it here to begin with?
Because it
Courtesy,
says,
safety, they want our input to really,
it says it should be referred to the planning
It's
board,
said in the, because
health
it's stated
ordinance,
in the
and
ordinance. as-
conservation.
oh, so they're only doing it because it's in the ordinance, it's a checkbox. But if they
Yeah.
really wanted our input, that they would make sure we got
They
it.
do, they really, Michael's had to send many letters
Mhm.
regarding
Right.
special
We've done a
exceptions.
couple.
In the past, it used to be that planning board would just get them,
Right,
but it was kind of like FYI.
Right,
okay.
But now the zoning board is asking for a letter, which then means the application comes here and the board has to actually review it and vote on it.
And are we trying to prevent it not from coming here all the time?
no, it's good to have it referred to you, but
Okay.
this is a good example of, take a look at this one, and I have the map, I think I did put the map on there in your portal.
Yep.
Yes.
Kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And I must say, this one was, good about, non-game species, they list everything, what they would do if they found them. So they're pretty thorough,
Yeah.
this for New England Power.
So I guess this brings us to item number 3, New England Power FY '23 footer repair, B202-A253 transmission line.
And that black dot is where the footer repair is. He's, almost on the town line with Londonderry. I'll color map if anybody's interested.
So basically, while this is the purview of the zoning board of adjustment, we have the opportunity to comment, and I think they're giving us that
I think you should
opportunity.
still have the opportunity, but, adding may choose to comment would be good.
And they ask us that before they take any action on the application?
Yes.
Yes.
So right now, given the status quo, they really do want the planning board to review this and send them a letter.
Because usually the Conservation Commission will send a letter either to support or, or recommend or not recommend a certain.
Well, these people will come into the Conservation Commission, Jake.
Right. But what I'm saying is that that's usually, that has been the norm for
Right.
many years. I mean, that
Yeah.
the zoning board has really deferred to the Conservation Commission when it comes to issues of wetland special exception. So, I mean, I guess it's just an opportunity for, to get input from the other boards in the town or the health officer and then, so. it's Before they make a decision, I guess.
And a good example on the other end would be what's going on in 3A now, that
Yeah.
we probably should have looked a little closer at that one. That's quite the big project.
That is a big project.
It is.
Yeah,
It's right next to my house.
yeah, right.
Yeah, right by your house, yeah.
Yep.
So do you,
I think
we
they
need to
did come
move
in.
that to like public hearing or something to keep that moving, or we wanna save that for?
Well, it's up to you.
Well, I mean, if we want to make a change to the ordinance, to what, basically, to make it like, because right now it's like the planning board sort of shall,
Mhm.
to a may, do it. Then you're gonna have to make the change, or Jay makes the change, we review it, then you have an opportunity for public notice, public comment, and then
We'd go without.
you
the
go
other
through the
zoning
process, I
changes.
mean, that you generally go through, so.
I could
that's-
certainly put the recommended language in, and then we could look at it at the next workshop and
Right.
decide if we want to vote it forward.
Okay. That sounds good. And do you need anything on, like a motion to send a no comment letter? or
Well, I
anything?
think if the board doesn't have any issues with this project, you can certainly vote to recommend that the planning board has reviewed it and has no comments to provide, if you wanted to say so. And then what would happen is, I'd have to draft a letter to the zoning board chair, basically stating that we have reviewed your, this application, we do not have any recommendations or proposals or whatever, and, we voted such and such, 600, that's what it was.
Okay.
So.
And we
that's-
have to send that letter right now, either way.
Right, so I mean,
okay.
right now, it's sort of been the standard, the status quo, but if we do decide to change it, which we can certainly do, then we have to go through the process.
Okay.
Tonight, we could vote to say, planning board reviewed it, we have no comments to offer.
Right, that's what you have to
Right.
do on this one.
Okay,
Yes.
so moved.
I'll
Okay, I
second.
have a motion by James, do I have a second?
I'll second.
So I have some discussion.
Yep, okay,
Just a
second,
quick, maybe a
Discussion.
comment.
Sam?
So with these projects that affect wetlands, time is really important. And so I was wondering, maybe we could recommend they try to stand up a team to work through weekends so that these plats aren't just sitting on the wetlands vacant for so long. It would speed up the process and reduce the effects to the wetlands. We could just make a recommendation. I know we can't mandate that.
That sounds fine with me.
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
okay with that.
yeah,
But we could amend the motion to
yeah, if you wanna.
offer that as a suggestion.
So,
I'll second that.
just so that I understand, what are you looking for?
Just a recommendation that they stand up a weekend team to continue work 7 days a week.
Team to continue work.
Or maybe even just a Saturday, anything to speed it along.
Okay,
With the idea being that they don't disrupt the wetlands. for as
so the
long
sooner
of a
they're
period of
finished,
time.
the sooner they leave and it can
okay,
recover.
I see, all right.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I like that.
Good. Okay, so we're gonna amend that motion to have
Yes.
that included, and you were
I'll second
second.
the amendment. yeah.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of, the motion as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 600. Okay, I will send that letter to the zoning board of adjustment, okay, with those changes. Okay, great, thank you. All right, that brings us to committee reports. Any reports from any committees? Kim, did you want to
Well,
get?
Do you mind if I go back to the other topic? Sorry. I'm glad about the vote, that's not it. Are we agreeing on the shall versus may tonight?
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
good.
That's,
Because I would like
Jay's
to
gonna-
still get the information, even if they don't need our vote on it.
Yes.
Just so we know it's
Yes.
happening.
I'll
Yes.
draft some language.
All right,
and
good.
bring it
yeah,
back to the board.
yeah, it's a
Don't want black
process, so
hole
we'll.
all of a sudden, you know, oh, that's going on. And that's good what you just said, because I'm looking at these turtles and snakes, and if
Yeah.
hibernation's coming up, you know, that's, whatever. That's all. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't, we're all of a sudden cut off from whatever, you know,
No,
the project's
no,
going on.
that's not the
Okay.
intent.
So I guess committee reports. Kim, do you?
Yes,
Well,
I
before
do.
we do that, can
Oh, wait a minute,
we get an
hold
update on, the Albuquerque study?
Yes, so, we did get back, the scope, cost estimates from the engineer, so, it should be wrapped up by the end of October.
Okay.
Good.
Great, thank you.
That was it?
Yeah, which is
End of
encouraging.
October?
That's good.
That
I'm
was-
glad that there'll be more
What was the engineer was?
school in that.
That was for the,
What was the
pedestrian.
engineering company though?
Oh, VHB.
That's right, VHB. Thanks.
Is this the grant you're talking about, or the?
The signage on Albuquerque.
Oh, the signage.
Right, signage, crosswalks.
Oh, okay.
I think this will actually work out better because then you're really gonna see the flow of school traffic and everything, where before it might not
That's
have been
true.
captured as
That's
much.
true.
At night. Rain.
Right, and they gotta keep in mind, you know, it gets dark at 4 o'clock in December.
Does anybody have anything else? Okay, I guess I'll go to committee reports.
Committee reports, take 3.
Unless someone else has something.
It's gonna be such a
Right,
letdown
well,
after
this
that
is
build-up. All right, the Board of Selectmen meets on Monday, September 26th, 6:30 PM here at the Town Hall. Jay, you just updated me on the planning board about the update on Albuquerque Ave. Thank you both for that, K2. NRPC, our next quarterly meeting is tomorrow, Wednesday, September 21st, 7 PM at NRPC's headquarters at 30 Temple Street in Nashua. The SIP Committee, Jay, you were absent on our last meeting on the 15th. It became very blatantly aware that we need something, anything you're working on, just something, because we didn't have a list of the projects or the priorities to date, so.
Say that again, what committee was that?
SIP, Capital Improvement
Capital
Plan.
Oh.
So you're there next time, so, you know, if we could just see where we're at. So I'm going to tell you what's going to be happening with that. Also, in a minute, but also at that meeting, it became aware we needed a list of the priorities to date and the current status of the impact fees, wherever they are at. We had one of the members ask about impact fees, if we can look at any as sunsetting. I know in our ordinances, some of them ended at certain times, you know, you can see it in the ordinances, but if there are any more coming up at the end of the year, that might be sunsetting. So while we're researching that, we can bring that up.
That's a good point.
Okay, our next meeting is our normal SIP meeting is Monday, October 3rd, 6 PM here at the Town Hall. That's gonna be a long meeting, Jay and Michael, because what we
Yes,
are
it will
doing,
be.
I think if you saw the email, we wanna bring all the department heads back in to do a final presentation.
Plus the school.
And if they're ready, so, well, I'll give you a note on that. So, final presentations, and they might have reprioritized their work. We also want to see if they want to use any ARPA funds towards it, if they have any idea if it's all or partial, and if they plan on doing any warrant articles to pay for anything on that SIP plan. So Karen White, well, she's our financial director, but she's also standing in for Troy until the other person comes on board. She sent out a description of what ARPA funds are and what they will pay for to the department heads, and what the dates, around ARPA funds are, so they can try to make a decision on that. Okay, so a long meeting, but we know budget season is here. We also have a second meeting scheduled for SIP on October 12th, 6 PM here at the Town Hall. The school hasn't presented yet. I don't think Recreation has yet. I know they're almost ready to go. Last I knew, the school was welcome to come back once they figured out what their bottom line number was as of last night's meeting, and have it resolved, then bring them on back in whenever they're ready. And that's where we're at.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any update on the hiring of a town administrator?
Nothing public yet. We're still working on that.
Conservation Commission meets the first of October, first week in October,
The sixth,
the 6th, here, 6:30 in Town Hall.
no, at, fire station.
Okay, at the fire station, 6:30. And Lower Merrimack Local River Advisory Committee, I have not heard anything from them. The Capital Improvement Committee, we did have our meeting on September 15th. We did hold off on the school until last night's meeting to make sure that everything was good there. And we'll have another meeting on October 3rd. And that's all I have. Kate, do you have anything?
Normal budget committee is on the 22nd. I think that's our last normal meeting, and then on the 29th, review of the town budget begins.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, great. Approval of the September 6th, 2022 minutes. Did everybody have an opportunity to take a look at those? Have any questions, concerns? They look pretty good.
I'm always amazed at how you can consolidate our conversations, Joe.
Oh, that reminds me, is Mr., what's his name?
Sherman?
No.
Sullivan?
Sullivan, is he watching the meeting tonight?
No, I'm doing tonight's, and then he will.
Is he coming in?
October 4th. October
Okay.
4th, he'll have to, I have no cases for October 4th, and he will do those from video. And
Okay,
then-
so just so everybody's aware, there's a gentleman, Matt Sullivan, in town who's doing the minutes for a lot of the boards in town, like the Conservation Commission. He's doing for the Board of Selectmen, Budget Committee, and others. And we thought it might be, Joan and I discussed it, we thought maybe we should have him do our minutes as well. He's very thorough. He does a great job. A lot of people are, very, very proud of his work. So I figured maybe we could sort of give him an opportunity to try us out and see if we want to bring him on board to do our minutes in the future. So I guess when we have whenever he's planning to come in for our next meeting or something.
Yeah, he said he had a duplicate meeting the 4th, so he would do that from video, then he could,
Okay, so he'll watch from video and then,
and then after. And then we have 2 big projects that may come in, so I would definitely help him with those.
Did he give an estimate on cost for that?
Yeah, he charges a flat rate of $75.
yeah.
For a
So-
meeting, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
per meeting.
And was that in the planning board budget that
We
you,
have
didn't you
excess
present?
money this year.
Yeah,
Next year, Troy had planned to make his item come out of the Board of Selectmen's budget so that everybody would be encompassed in
Okay,
that.
all right, so it won't show on our budget page. It would just be one line for minute taker for all the boards.
For next year, yeah.
for next
Okay.
year.
Well, he's turning around those CIP minutes really quickly.
Yeah, he is,
Yeah,
and he does do very,
Get home and they're there.
Yeah, I know.
Really? I don't remember that.
how quickly you forget. Okay, so back to the September 6, 2022 minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve. Yep.
Make a motion to approve by Kate. Do I have a second?
second.
By Kim. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstained?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5-0-1. Okay, thank you. And thank you, Joan. Not to say that your minutes aren't good. Not
Freeing her
at
up.
all.
Freeing a lot of my time
Yeah,
during the
really.
week.
Well deserved.
We appreciate what you do, so.
It's just
Okay.
critical.
Any other business this evening? Jay, do you have anything else?
I do not.
Okay. Joan, do you have anything?
No.
Okay. If nobody else has anything, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, so I have a motion by Kate, a second by Ron. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 6-0-0.
Look at that.
Thank you for joining us this evening, and we will see you in October. Good night.